So it's 9 in Pakistan. So Shawn, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Fine, Shawn. So as we planned, it's your turn now. Over to you, Shawn. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is Shawn Kathuria. I'm located in New Jersey in the United States. For several years now, I have been interested in advanced technology and the impact that such technologies are likely to have on various areas of society. Today, I'll be talking about developments taking place in the field of education that are likely to radically change the way that young people are educated over the next 5 to 15 years. Let's look at why this is so important, especially for developing countries. First, we have to acknowledge that with the exception of China and 5 or 6 other mostly East Asian countries, there have been little improvement in aggregate education outcomes in most of the world's countries over the last 10 years. From a world perspective, we are nowhere near being on track to achieve the SDGs with regards to education by 2030. At the same time, a study of the global state of education by the Brookings Institute concluded that it will take the developing countries more than 100 years to close the education gap by copying the education methods currently utilized in developed countries. They go on to say that the only chance for developing countries to close the education gap is to leapfrog those learning methods that developed countries are currently using and beginning to phase out. There's a famous sports analogy, like in soccer: run to where the ball is going, not where it currently is. That means developing countries should not focus so much on duplicating the current education methods of the developed countries, but rather to seek to implement the education system that developed countries will have in 10 years or so in the future. This is especially critical since so many education experts are saying that education practices of developed countries over the last 150 years are inadequate to the needs of the 21st century. Inadequate in terms of both, one, that too many students in even the most developed countries are failing to achieve their desired levels of education, and two, even when the desired level of education is being achieved, the skills that many graduates are achieving are not adequate to meet the needs of the 21st century. Many developing countries believe that one of the causes of poor education outcomes is the lack of qualified teachers. What might that mean for developing countries if they could achieve world-class education outcomes without having to first develop a large number of qualified teachers? For many of you, the idea of a successful education system that might not need teachers sounds like crazy talk. So let's look at how the education process might evolve into such a condition, and in some cases has already. A key recognition in education is that teacher-driven, one-to-many, one-size-fits-all education results in a high number of learners receiving a substandard education. Today, in most developed countries, it is widely accepted that the best education process is the one that caters to the personal needs of individual students, and thus the efforts to move away from teacher-driven education to be personalized, learner-driven education, replacing the sage on the stage with the guide on the side. But the current teacher-driven education system teaches learners to be passive participants in the learning process. In order to be effective lifelong learners, learners need to be active, self-driven, independent learners. A personalized, learner-driven education means that each learner is learning at their own pace, using learning materials suited to their personal learning styles. It is obvious that no teacher can effectively manage a process where at any given point, at any point in time, every learner might be somewhere else in the learning process for any given subject moving at a different pace. We therefore need some mechanism that will monitor the progress of individual learners that would alert teachers of any learners that are having difficulty with learning any particular unit or failing to put in the expected amount of effort so that the teacher can potentially intervene on a management by exception basis. This would enable teachers to focus on the students most in need of help at any given time. If the learners are progressing at their own pace, where are the learners getting the knowledge from? One could envision that the learners are getting the knowledge from the same textbooks, tutorial videos, and the like as they are today, with one big exception. They are not getting education from the teacher. Or sorry, I should rather say they are not getting knowledge from the teacher. If the goal is to produce effective independent learners, then the teacher should limit themselves to teaching the learner how to learn and not how math, science, or any other subject works. This means that we are really no longer having any use for any subject-focused teachers in interaction with learners, especially at the more basic levels of any subject. While learners may control the pace at which they are learning and the learning materials they are using, they should be following proven learning paths. In addition, there has to be a way to assess whether mastery has been achieved in each of these steps. It should be possible for a learner to progress to a learning unit that they have not, it should not be possible, rather, for a learner to progress to a learning unit that they have not yet fully mastered all the prerequisites for. There are some systems that already provide many parts of such learning systems. For example, Khan Academy. The Khan Academy math platform, which is available in a great number of the world's languages, provides a learning map that goes all the way from 1 plus 1 equals 2 to advanced calculus. It breaks down the learning process down into smaller learning units and assesses learner progress. Learners have access to hints and tutorial videos, and it does not allow a learner to move on until they have demonstrated full mastery at the current learning unit. The system also includes a progress tracking component. It tracks user progress in comparison to historically expected values. If a learner is having more than expected difficulty with a particular learning unit, the teacher is then able to easily see that and look more closely into that learner's particular situation. They're actually able to see every question the learner has been confronted with and what the learner did in response. This enables the teacher to determine whether an intervention is warranted or not. The system also tracks learner engagement. If a learner is putting in less than the expected effort, the teacher is able to see this and is able to give the learner more subtle guidance regarding this, or turn to more effective motivational measures to get the learner on track with regard to the effort that they are investing. According to the Skoll Foundation, Khan Academy is currently being used by more than 100 million learners every year. Khan Academy is also cloud-based, but there are more parts of the world that do not have access to the cloud. There are solutions being worked on that should provide universal high-speed internet access from almost anywhere in the world. But in the interim, there is a version of Khan Academy that does not require internet access and runs on a $20 server that can serve an entire class of learners using very low-cost tablets. Many more such solutions are coming shortly. A couple of years ago, the X Prize Foundation offered a $15 million reward to the team that developed the best open source, scalable software that empowers children to teach themselves basic reading, writing, and arithmetic within 15 months without requiring a teacher. Several teams offered solutions that came close to meeting these goals. In summary, there are technologies available that are making it possible for a large share of the world population to participate in a learning process that could enable them to leapfrog the process that developed countries have gone through in the last 100 years or so. Developing countries need to establish task forces to implement such future-oriented education methods as quickly as possible. I'll post a link in the chat to a paper describing what I've been talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Very candid and focused talk you have given in a very short amount of time. And we would like you to proceed with the initiative you are taking in Pakistan. And thank you, Bill, for introducing Shawn with us. And definitely we'll learn more from him.